So, today is the 22nd. Just gonna adjust this thing here. Today is the 22nd of November. It's a Tuesday, and there's been a bit in the news today. It was on CNN and on various other places. Following Trump, we've only just got President-elect Trump, and I doubt there's been so much fuss made about somebody in the first 3 months or whatever of the process of changing president as this guy. And there's, as often is the case with people who are leaders of a slightly extreme end of the political spectrum, it's not the things that they do directly necessarily that cause problems or are the big moving and shaking things in their term of office or whatever. It's the people they bring along with them and the encouragement they give. So we've got this guy appeared called Richard Spencer, and this guy is obviously a racist who's trying to just dress it up a bit, but not very much. And he's said this thing, "Hail Trump," which is obviously meant to be Heil Trump, and harks back to those Nazi days in Germany when the party that Nazi is a shortened version of the name of, the Nazi party was formed and Hitler got voted in. You know, that little short, brown-haired, brown-eyed guy who said Germans were the pure race and had all those posters out of big blonde guys with buxom blonde women and everyone's fit and healthy and uber. That little short guy who was Austrian, not even German. And I mean, that's what all this harks back to. And just to make sure that you absolutely get that he's going back to the heyday, or whatever you want to call it, of Germany, the Nazi days of Germany, before they got defeated by the rest of the world. That's Russia, China, America, Europe. You know, once Europe managed to fight back through Britain, basically. He's harking back to those days, and to make sure that you don't miss that point, he's saying things like clever little phrases. I mean, this scripting must have taken quite a while to work out. He says things like, "The press are a lying press," he says, and to say it in the original German, they are Lügenpresse, which I assume means lying press or something in German. This facsimile, this neo-Nazism, this pseudo-Nazism is only thinly disguised. And during this particular rally, which was shown on Sky Atlantic or something, and CNN have since shown it, he's getting people all worked up, and there's people, and he gives effectively a Nazi salute. And because it's kind of not quite clear whether his fist is closed or not, but effectively gives a Nazi salute. And that is responded to by the crowd, several of whom give Nazi salutes in response. Some of whom are really, he works them up. And how can I put this? It's the closest thing that a man can get to having sex with another man, when he rubs the bigotry and the prejudice that guy is unable to let out in everyday life. When he rubs it and warms it up and encourages it and soothes it, it's the closest thing that two men can get to having sex. To have some big guy up on the podium and his little bitch giving a Nazi salute in response. I mean, I've got a few words to say about that, but there are guys, you can see them in this Sky Atlantic clip and on CNN it was shown, as I say. There's guys actually running forward, eager to give the Nazi salute. And show how they're more eager than the other people to give a Nazi salute. Look, I want you to see me giving you the Nazi salute. And shouting Hail Trump, which, as I say, is a veiled Heil Trump and all that. I have come to the conclusion that it is as good as what we would call let's call it the Johnson salute. Because if you imagine a guy standing, the Richard Spencer, big powerful type, right-wing nationalist character standing and leaning back like this with his penis erect and up against his belly, and the little bitch in the audience going like that while kneeling down, it's exactly right for the little bitch guy in the audience to be rubbing his Johnson in just the right place, his willy, his dick in just the right place to stimulate. And so I'm going to call it the Johnson salute. And so they're all there giving each other the Johnson salute, oh no, you stand back, I'll do it. And it's as close as two men can get to having sex, letting that horrible little prejudice be eroticised and rubbed up and stimulated. Look, we're doing it in public, it's really hideous. Now, I appreciate not everybody has a black spouse like I have. And so not everybody can go on some kind of first-hand appreciation. But I can tell you this. My experience in life, and it covers Muslims and black people and white people, they are all the same: money-grabbing, greedy, cheating, deceitful, unfaithful, infidelity, two-faced bastards, no matter what colour the skin is. They are just as likely to be decent people as awful people. And it has nothing to do with the skin. I know people that have been ripped off horribly by black people, in the sort of way that I've seen white people do to other white people. Because where I come from, it's almost exclusively, in my time and place, white people with blue eyes. And they were perfectly awful to other people without there being any intervention by Mexicans, black people, Chinese people, Russian, just without any intervention from any other race. The most homogenous race you can imagine, and they just shafted each other constantly and were awful to each other. I'm in the process of writing a book about how awful they were to each other, but it's not necessary to have a scapegoat to blame this stuff on. White people, Caucasian, whatever you want to call them, are perfectly capable of being awful to their own kind. You don't need to scapegoat black people for it, or Muslims for it, or Mexicans, because white people are perfectly capable of being bloody awful to other white people without any help. And when people say, let's go back, which is what all this is about, Trump is kind of harking back to the 50s and the 60s. Unfortunately, a time when, it was prejudice all round, and blacks couldn't go to the same toilets, couldn't use the same bars, couldn't shop in the same places. And this guy, Richard Spencer, this right-wing dick, this racist, who is encouraging other racists, he is there harking back even further, really, to the Nazi era, I would say. And you've got to realise that's what Trump's doing. He's encouraging people to come out. Now, make no mistake, this is like any sermon. It is a fundraiser, in effect. I'll guarantee you there is money changes hands here. Maybe not for a ticket, but certainly some kind of donation and stuff is expected and given. And if these people really think that some kind of wonderful world is going to occur, if they can make the place white again, it isn't. I've been to that world. I grew up in that world. It's bloody just as awful as the current world. No change. You don't look there for change, because changing the colour of people that you hang around with, or that you see in the street, or that are in the bar you're in, or whatever, it just doesn't make any difference. You're still going to be as put upon or not as you always were. So that's what it's come down to. He's encouraging all these people. Now, I'll just say a few words about the what Hitler did. There are two things to watch out for. Them going for the youth, the right wing going for the youth. Hitler had the Hitler Youth Programme, and they grew from that into the Brown Shirts Brigade. And so the Brown Shirts were the older boys, and the Hitler Youth were the younger, I think. But it was all very. They wanted to get them as young as possible and brainwash them. And if you get people very young, and to be fair, Muslims have shown this, they are desperate that their Muslims are taught the Quran and learn it backwards to frontwards from the age 0. Just work on them all the time. That means that a lot of people who are Muslims grow up not really questioning the Quran because it's a crime, more or less, to question it. I don't have anything against Muslim people as such, but you have to carefully consider that religion is trying very hard to indoctrinate people. This right-wing bunch are doing exactly the same thing and smoothing people and urging them to read all this stuff that Google, of course, I'm pointing to my iPad, will bring to them. Once Google discovers that you're a bit of a Nazi, it basically bends the world round you so that your world becomes a Nazi view, a Nazi eye view of everything. A bigot's eye view. It's bloody terrible what it does. The internet just does that. And you begin to think that, because you'll look up two things. You look up people that are very like you and people that are opposite to you, in your view, opposite. So, a racist will typically look up Nazi stuff and right-wing stuff like this guy, Richard Spencer, and be a Trump fan and all the rest of it. And they will also look up Muslims and black people and all that stuff to find out the awful things that they're doing. And of course, Google will, bow to their wishes by making the world bend around them. And so there's lots of black people doing awful stuff, giving black power salutes. And there's lots of white people saying that we'll be much better off if we make the world white again. And it bends the whole thing. So look out for them going for the youth. And the other thing is the competitive thing. Trump is starting to stir up a lot of competitive right-wingers who are all sycophants and sucking up to him. There's people sending them letters saying how wonderful he is. Excuse me. And there's certain news channels who are a lot more friendly to him than other news channels. And Hitler did this with the SS and the Gestapo and other branches of his military and pseudo-military groups. He had them all vying for each other for his favour. And of course, all you had to do was come up with the latest, worst plan, the worst atrocity you could think of, worse than the last guy's plan, against the Jews. And Hitler would basically think you were one of the good guys. And so Hitler is somebody who led from behind. These are leaders, Trump and Spencer and all the rest of them are people who actually lead from behind. They don't say to people, here's a better way, let's go. They actually lead from behind saying, I'm going to soothe your prejudices and we'll just see where it takes us. Okay, well, I've been where it takes you. It's nowhere good. You're just going to a place where white people are awful to each other instead of some black people being awful to you and some Chinese people being awful and some Muslims being awful and some Mexicans being awful. So what? It's an extremely aggressive stance to take up, and I'm only as relaxed about it as I am because I'm inherently white and inherently not actually deeply touched by it. I just find it really offensive. But if you're a black person, you must think they're a right bunch of wankers. You really must, because they are trying to provoke. So if you're a Muslim or a black person or a Mexican, I say this: treat it with contempt, because it's what it deserves. And that Johnson salute, Nazi salute as they'd like to call it, but not call it. That's all it is. They're just soothing each other's willies. They're just rubbing each other's willies. It's just guys working themselves into a frenzy in a closed room. And it will be mostly guys. It's desperate. How many Americans died to helped save Europe, and now their legacy is just being trampled on by a bunch of people that think being a Nazi is alright. It leads to nothing good. It's positively dangerous. The anti-Semitism, the anti-Mexican thing, the anti-Muslim thing, the anti-black thing, all this stuff. And one thing I should say that Spencer says is that he wants to make America white again, like it always used to be, go back to the way it used to be. You can't tell me that back in the day Mexicans weren't in America in the southern part where Texas is and all that. And the only thing kept them out were the Indians, the indigenous American people at the time, and then Europeans came across and took over, introduced the Indians to alcohol and a kind of violence that they'd never known before, and it went on from there to the ultimate decimation of a primitive people by the incomers. There you go. And look at how many Indians there are left. Indigenous peoples there are left. Not that many. So, going back to being white, you're really trying to swing it to a position where the whites were in excessive positions of power. So what they're really saying is, we want all the better jobs and all the better lifestyles, and we'd like you to leave all the good places and leave all the good jobs, please, to us white people. Nothing good's going to come of it. And Trump will do what all people in his position do that are leading from behind. He dare not come out and denounce them because he might want the support, or he might be already enjoying the support. So, you know, I've heard Muslims do it, who are not in this country, in the UK, they're not calling down people who have formed Muslim gangs and raped white girls. And, you know, there are people like baronesses and stuff, and they're just refusing to call these things down. And Trump's going to do that with the right wings, with the right wing dickheads, as opposed to the extremist Muslim dickheads. He's just going to not come out and decry them in particular. And a lady, I think she's called Kelly McInerney, was on, and she's on a lot on Anderson Cooper and stuff, and on political programs. I think she's a journalist of some sort, but she's very pro-Trump. She's a gorgeous blonde. So this helps. TV loves it. You know, there are certain people that TV just loves, and gorgeous blondes are people that look good on TV. So they tend to get invited on a lot. And of course, she uses clever words as well. She said he's not going to give them a platform, these right-wingers, by mentioning them by name and all that stuff. And it sounds to me like she's saying he's not going to pick them out in particular. But if they're the ones in particular who are starting to shout in racist terms and give Nazi rants and Nazi salutes, I think maybe they need to be mentioned just once at least and brought down. But he won't do that because, like Hitler, he's going to lead from behind. So you can talk about Trump all you want and say how he's this, he's that, the other. He's a rich guy. Most of the problems that most normal people have, he doesn't have. His confidence is mainly from his circumstances. So if you think by being nice to him, you're going to be super confident one day, that's only a byproduct of if you happen to get rich. That's all this right-wing stuff. It's gone a little bit nutty, and I'm not sure what will put the brakes on it, but I can say, coming from a place that's predominantly, almost exclusively white-skinned and blue-eyed, you'll just turn on each other. So don't think that this is a brighter, whiter future, because it's not. Right, so thanks for watching and listening.